If variety is the spice of life, Minnesota's Rainy Lake has a lot to offer adventure-seeking anglers. Famous for being a world-class walleye, smallmouth bass, northern pike, and musky fishery, Rainy Lake is also something special when it comes to black crappie. Crappie grow big and fat in the wilderness waters of Rainy Lake, providing anglers yet another good reason to visit this sprawling fishery. This week on Fishing 411 TV, Jake Romanack travels to International Falls, Minnesota, where he does a little truck camping with the Travel Lite RV and hooks up with local guide Captain Donnie O'Bert. Captain O'Bert guides year-round on Rainy Lake for a host of species. You simply won't believe the slabs Jake and Donnie dredge up from the depths of Rainy Lake.
So there's some tall trees in here. They look pretty empty, but if you all you have is side imaging, you can still find these, and you can slide your cursor over. There's for sure one big crappie on that tree. I'll zoom in. See it? Plain as day. Another one at the base there. Another one around it. When these are loaded, that'll look like an oak tree. And the crappies will look like the leaves on the tree. So there's a few more trees in here. We'll scan around a little bit more, see if we can find some. But typically if there's crappies on them, they're on most of them. So we'll scan just a little bit more here. If we can't find them here, to the next spot.
Oh, there's a bunch of them down there now, Donnie. Yeah, that didn't take long. They started filling in, getting more and more on the live.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun today, Donnie.
Yeah, we're showing some fish in the pile, aren't we?
Today we're fishing brush piles for crappies, and let me pop this jig out really quick and show him off. Rainy Lake crappies. Do a lot of traveling all over the country, and you hear people talk about Rainy Lake crappies. That's exactly what we're doing today, using jigs and plastics, live sonar, brush pile fishing. We're gonna catch a pile of them. Not a bad fish. Go ahead and put him back.
I'm gonna throw a couple times into that pile. There's a lot of fish in the pile, so we'll just see if I can't get one of those. Use that competition, and that breeds a bite here just a little bit. See it dropping, dropping. Dropping. It's right in the brush pile. Got some lookers coming. There we go. Pulled one right out of the brush pile. It looked like a little better fish, but so many of them popped out, you can't tell which one it was, you know. That would make a fish taco. And we're not keeping any today, so we're gonna let that one back. Okay, so in this system, a lot of times it seems like either they go absolutely bananas, or you really have to work them. So when the bite is a little tough, we're seeing a ton of crappies here on our live machines coming in and out of this brush pile, and they're just not committing. They're following up 8-10 feet and not eating. So when the bite is like that, I found that if you can hit 5, 6, 7 brush piles or maybe some tall trees. Are we hooked up?
Oh, big one too.
Well, that's like I was just saying, we might stay here for a few more minutes.
Donnie's talking about leaving, and I'm just trying to catch these fish. They are being a little bit lethargic, but you can tell by the clothes we're wearing today that we're dealing with the cold front type conditions, right? Like the temperature, the rest of the entire country right now is under a heat advisory, but up here in International Falls on Rainy Lake, I got just about everything that I have for clothes on right now just to stay warm. When you deal with that with crappies, they're a pretty picky fish when it comes to weather and conditions. So I went in today figuring that these fish would be a little bit tougher to go. Donnie thinks we're going to find some fish that are just going to go bonkers, and you know what? He knows this fishery, and we're going to cover some water today and look at brush piles. But if you work these fish, this one I probably brought up and down 5 or 6 times. But finally, when I dropped that jig back down, boom, there he was, and that is a beautiful Rainy Lake crappie.
Special considerations are provided by Cisco Fishing Systems, your fishing equipment experts. Special considerations are provided by ProCure, ruthlessly effective bait sets.
There we go. There it is.
Big one. Oh. Woo.
Yeah.
Stay tight on him here. Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, those are what we're here for.
That's what we're looking for.
Nice.
Now that is a Rainy Lake crappie. Whew. That is a beautiful fish, and that fish just came up and smoked it. We're going to deal with this today. We're going to deal with lethargic fish. But you know what? We have the tools in the boat today to be able to dial these fish in. We have live sonar on both the front and the back of the boat. So Donnie's going to be glued to his screen, and I'm going to be glued to my screen. But between the two of us, we're going to pick apart and catch a pile of Rainy Lake crappies. And that is a beautiful fish.
It's funny because they're so finicky today, but when they eat it,
Yeah,
I mean,
they eat it.
You're not hooking the outside of that lip. I mean, when they eat it, they commit. You know, like a D1 running back, committed.
You know, one of the fun things about this week's show is just how simple this presentation really is. You know, a lot of times when we're doing television shows, we'll get real in-depth on different types of techniques. But this particular style of fishing, literally anybody can do, and it takes very little money as far as equipment to go out and actually do this style of fishing. Now what you're going to say is, Jake, we're talking about live sonar and it's a very expensive thing, and that's true, but you don't necessarily have to have live sonar to do this style of fishing. It makes it a little bit easier, but just like anything else, it's a tool to help us catch more fish. So if you're going to come out here and you don't have live sonar, what you want to focus on is your actual presentation. And in this case, basically all we're doing here is just taking a simple 1/8 ounce lead head jig. Now this is an eagle eye jig from Eagle Claw. One of the things I love about this particular jig is it's got this what's called the Pro V hook on it. It's a real thin wire hook, it's a long hook, and with these crappies they have relatively soft mouths. So what I want ideally when that fish sucks that bait in, to get that long shank at the back of the mouth, nice thin wire. You really send the hook home when you hook them fish, and you don't lose as many fish with that hook. So just a simple lead head jig like this eagle eye jig, and then a different assortment of plastics. Right now we've been catching a lot of fish on this particular plastic, the minnow style plastic with a kind of a straight tail. I think this is a Bobby Garland right here. So many different styles of plastics that you can mess with. So you want an assortment of 2-inch size or smaller plastics to have to put on these lead jigs. So again, just a simple lead jig like this, a nice little small piece of plastic, and the key is finding this structure and finding these crappies. If you find them, you're going to catch them. Now again, we've talked about this in this episode quite a few times. If you find some fish and they're just simply not going, go find some more fish. Now today, throughout the day, we've fished piles that have lots of fish that don't want to bite, and other piles that have lots of fish that do want to bite. Same weather, same type of environment today. Some of these piles have aggressive fish and some don't, and it changes daily. So don't be afraid to move around. A simple lead head jig and some plastic, and you're going to catch a lot of Rainy Lake crappie.
So typically what I will do is pitch to the brush pile or two individual fish. Try to stop the bait, drift it into them. When they're being real lethargic, I like to hang it right above them and actually keep it pretty still, like just as subtle a twitch as you can give a bait. Like, you know what, one thing that's really kind of neat with these live units is you can watch fish interact. And like traditionally, if you thought you were barely moving a bait, in reality you were probably moving it a lot. Like watching how much rod movement it takes to move a bait is that's a pretty good fish there. You know, you think back to when you first started learning how to fish, and you know, you were told to do something subtly or gently, and if you actually watch these live sonars, like the tiniest tick of your rod tip moves that bait a lot more than you think. So just an invaluable tool for watching baits. Oh, Jakey.
Oh, perchy.
Well, that's a mixed species. And no giant by any means, but...
Special considerations provided by Abyss Battery. Power your pursuit. Special considerations are provided by the Ultimate Sport Show Tour, Michigan's premier sport shows.
Yeah, baby, look at that. Woo!
Travel Lite Truck Campers presents the 411 on fishing.
You know, at Fishing 411, we've been fishing with smooth move suspension seats for a lot of years, and we get an awful lot of questions. People want to know how we rig the smooth move seats in our boats, and also which one of the models of smooth move that we like the most. Well, actually, the short answer is we like both models. There's two models. There's the Smooth Move Air, which is air seat, air adjusted seat, and there's also the original, which is called the Smooth Moves Ultra. And that's what I'm sitting in right now is the Smooth Move Ultra, and we mount this on the passenger side of our boat. And the reason we do that primarily is that there's typically no electrical power routed to the port side of a fishing boat. So the Ultra doesn't require any power. It's a perfect place to put this seat. It still can be adjusted very quickly and easily to adjust to the person's weight. And that happens just with this little knob down here. You can turn it clockwise to increase the spring tension or counterclockwise to decrease the spring tension. So it's real easy to adjust on the fly. So the Ultra, we typically will mount it on the passenger seat. Well, what about the other model? What about the Air? Well, if I hop across over here, the Air, we typically mount on the driver's side. And the reason we do that is because the Air can be adjusted very quickly on the fly. When I'm running down the lake and I need to increase the spring tension a little bit because I'm running into rougher water that maybe I started in the beginning of the day, I can do it very simply with a lever. Down here, all I have to do is pull out a lever to let air out or push in, and you can hear it actuating to put more air in. So in a split second, I can have my hand on the wheel and still adjust the smooth move very, very quickly. And because most boats have power on the driver's side, no problem putting power to this seat. Typically, I hardwire mine right to a bus, right specifically underneath the console of the boat, so I don't have to dig out a power cord every time I want to use it. It's always got power to it. I can adjust the Smooth Moves Air instantaneously as I need as I'm running. So both products are a great product. You can use the Air on the driver's side, and I recommend on the passenger side, the Ultra. Either way you go, you're not going to find a better suspension seat than the Smooth Move ride.
Oh man, sometimes it's funny watching these live units. You can actually pinpoint the bigger fish, and that is a big fish right there. That one came in underneath the brush pile and was just holding tight, so I was able to bomb one through the brush and popped it off the bottom, and that fish just smashed it. So that's a pretty good crappie. Those are the ones we're here for. One thing, as you're watching your screen, I'll tell you, it's when you have a fish chasing you up and you're watching the whole thing, it's real easy to lose track of what you're doing and just raise and raise and raise and raise and raise. And then you get hit way up here, and guess what? You got nowhere to go with a hook set. So a lot of times what I'll do if I see a fish coming up, and I'll raise my arm and raise my arm, I will actually just slowly reel. That way, when I get hit, my rod tip is low enough where I still have room to get a good hook set. And believe it or not, you do have to set the hook on crappies. If you watch them in underwater footage or in aquariums, a lot of times when a crappie eats, it is, and if it's something they don't want, it's, and they blow it out like lightning fast. So if you don't get a good hook set on them, they know that that's not food just as fast as you would know that's not food. You know, so you do gotta stick them. Otherwise, they're gonna blow that bait right out, and you're back to square one.
Just one after another after another. One of the things I feel like is important with this style of fishing, even though these fish, I'll swing him in here, are just absolutely hammering it. I still feel like what's very important is your setup that you have. You know, I have a braided line set up here. That means there's no stretch. That's very important, pretty much because I'm fishing a small jig. You know, I want to be able to feel that bite, and these fish are hammering it right now, so that's not really the problem. But when you're fishing a smaller jig, that lighter diameter line is important, so you can let that jig fall to the bottom. I'm trying to get that jig down there as fast as possible to get in front of another one of these fish.
So a lot of panfish guys out there might actually watch this episode and notice that on my rod I use a uni to uni knot, which a lot of panfish pros will tell you is a no-no because of bait spin. And they'll tell you you should be using a small barrel swivel. On the tip of high-end rods, there's almost always a ceramic insert. And I fish with inexperienced anglers who get excited, I get excited, and they reel that barrel swivel 123,000 miles an hour into that ceramic insert and crack it. You could, on your own personal rod, you could add a small barrel swivel, and that will help alleviate some of the line twist and some of your bait spinning like this underwater. That will happen with a uni to uni knot. A barrel swivel can alleviate some of those issues.
Special considerations are provided by the Lake St. Clair Walleye Association and by Striker Brands. Go early, go late, go prepared. Special considerations are provided by Fish Hawk Electronics. Fishing without a fish hawk is called boating.
I say it's a little tougher in the back of the boat. You can still see me dropping plain as day right here. That big fish already sees me. He's already coming. He's gonna run it out. Oh, another big fish is coming. They're coming. Bam! There's nothing more fun. That's gonna be a nice fish. When crappies get aggressive.
Oh, almost had a double, Donnie.
Absolutely smoked it, yo. Yeah, that's gorgeous Rainy Lake fish. That's 12, 13, dude. We're averaging some tanks.
Yeah, these are great fish.
One other thing I do every time I reel in, I make sure my bait's hanging horizontal. And that might sound like a small thing, but in nature, minnows don't hang straight up and down, nor do leeches, nor do just about anything that these fish eat. So every time I put a bait out, I take and just slip that knot, so when my bait's hanging in the water column, it's horizontal. That small tip is actually pretty critical whether you're fishing for crappies or walleyes, or you know what, I really don't care what you're after. Having your bait horizontal in the water column is pretty critical. You're right on top. You got come up, sweep your rod tip up just a little bit. You got one coming. You got a big one coming. He's all over it. Bam! Hook set. That's quarterbacking.
Thanks, Donnie.
Yeah.
He had his live pointed right at it. Literally just coached me into catching this thing. And take a look at this fish right here. Oh my goodness. That is so cool. I mean, the whole thing step-by-step live roll. Lift your rod up a little bit. He was watching my jig the whole time. And this big, giant Rainy Lake crappie came up and smoked it.
We're here for the badonkadonk. Now, we were getting short struck a lot there, so being I was in Jake's boat, I asked him for a number 7 J-wrap and dropped that thing down and just made it dance on top of this fish until it couldn't take it anymore, turned straight up and torpedoed it. Most folks wouldn't think of that as a crappie bait, but it works.
That's 4 casts in a row that the jig didn't make it to the bottom. Another big one. Another big crappie. What a beautiful fish. Man, oh man, oh man, I'm absolutely speechless. The average size of these fish that we're catching right now are just absolutely incredible.
Oh, Slabosaurus. I'd be happy to catch those all day. I don't know where you're from, but that, for me, that's a pretty nice slab, team. That's the addiction of live sonar. It's you see Jake and I are dropping right side by side here. Hopefully I can keep both of us on the screen.
Yeah, tell me when to stop.
Stop it right there, bud. I got one coming. There he is. God dang it, short struck me again.
Oh, this feels like a really good one, Donnie.
Is it?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Another tank.
Beauty.
Another tank. Woo! Very spoiled rotten when it comes to all the places we get to travel to, but all season long I've been looking forward to coming to Rainy Lake, and this is exactly why I wanted to come to Rainy Lake. I want to take this opportunity to thank Donnie O'Bert for bringing me out here and showing me this incredible fishery, and hopefully you guys learned a few things along the way. My name is Jake Romanack. You've been watching Fishing 411. We'll see you here same time, same place next week.
Closed captioning is provided by Precision Trolling Data. Fishing 411 TV is brought to you by Offshore Tackle, Starcraft Marine, Suzuki Marine, J Sporting Goods, Smooth Move Seats, Niagara Falls, USA, Eagle Claw, Bill Lewis, and Yakima Bait Company.
I'm told you, I'm just weeding out the little ones so you can get the big fish, buddy. That's what guides do, you see. It's not about the fame or the fortune. It's just putting fishermen that aren't quite as talented on big fish. That's what guides do.